everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my college Q&A video, and I'm so excited. I remember when I was asking questions in September, and I realized after receiving some of those questions that I definitely wasn't experienced enough to be telling you guys how my college experience is and how awesome college is, but it is, in reality, it is not. It's not perfect, and that's what I've learned over one semester at college. So now I asked you guys recently on my Instagram to send in more questions, and you did, so I'm separating this Q&A video into several different parts. I will leave the different sections and their timestamps in the description box down below if you want to skip ahead. But yeah, let's get started into the video because there are a hell of a lot of questions. The first category is going to be major, and the first question is, what are you studying? So I am studying environmental studies, and I'm also pursuing a minor in Japanese, so that is what I'm studying. And the second question that someone asked related to majors is, what do you like about Japan and what makes you want to read Japanese? So when I went to Japan last summer, the most amazing thing about it was definitely the culture and the food, and just how different it was from living here in America all my life. And I don't know, something about Asian languages, about writing, learning a whole new alphabet and writing the characters is just really pleasing. It's also very stress relieving. Sometimes when I'm bored or sometimes when I'm very stressed, I just love doing my Japanese homework because I get to write all the characters and I get to like erase it again and see how pretty it is. But yeah, that's somehow very stress relieving, so it makes me want to definitely learn how to read Japanese and how to be fluent in it so that I can communicate with the natives and also just write a lot more Japanese because I love it very much. The second category we're going into is about leaving home. So the first question is, are you far from home, and if so, do you think it will be worth it? So I think I should add some context to this question. I was born in New York. I have lived in New York all my life, but for college I moved to Minnesota, so a pretty significant change. It's actually pretty far now that I think of it. I have to commute by plane every time I want to come home, but yeah, so I'm pretty far from home, and do I think it will be worth it? When I first applied to the school, I definitely thought it would be worth it, and that still stands true to today. I think my experience at this college, going so far from home and going to a pretty large city as well, Minneapolis and St. Paul, the Twin Cities, they are pretty big cities, like not that different from New York, a lot less people for sure, but the giant buildings, cars, less honking, but it's still very similar to New York that I don't feel totally homesick, and that was definitely a considerable choice in my college decision process, was to choose a school that wasn't so different from New York, because I knew that I would have a huge culture shock and I would just be like, what? Where am I? But yeah, I definitely think my experience at this college, I think my experience anywhere, even if it was in a in-state college, would totally be worth it, because college in itself is an experience that is definitely will teach you something one way or the other. So I think it'll be worth it. The next question is, what is it like moving away from home? So this one is going to be a pretty long answer. It is very different from anything I've ever done before. I have traveled away from home. I have done a lot of things that are kind of questionable, that are still not comparable to moving away from home and the sensation of what it feels like and just this huge culture shock. And yes, there is still a huge culture shock, even though the Twin Cities is still a huge area. It's a big city and I am in a similar place. It is difficult moving away from home, moving away from your family and your friends and your neighbors, just people that you're so used to seeing every single day, and now you only see them maybe like a few times in a year. So yeah, it's different. I remember the first month of college, I texted my mom all the time telling her where I was, and what time I would be coming home from like this event at school or from class, and what time, if I was eating dinner, I would be like, Mom, I'm eating dinner now, and I'd take a picture of my dinner. And for the first month, I didn't realize, like, it was something very unconscious to me that I was doing it, but it's just something that I was so used to, because at home, in high school, we're so used to telling our parents, well, sometimes we are, but we're so used to telling our parents where we are, we're so used to talking to our parents every day, or our friends every day, that we don't realize that when we're far away from them, that it's just not normal anymore. It's just not like it's not, you know, you're in control of your own life now. You don't have to tell them where you are at all times, and I think it's something that took me a lot getting used to. My parents were also very considerate. They were like, Alex, you don't have to tell us where you are at every moment of the day, and I realized early on that they also expected me to kind of live on my own, and they were very helpful in the transition. So, love you, parents. The next question is, how did you convince your parents to let you move out? So my parents weren't very vocal in my college decision-making process, so it didn't really take much convincing. What I did when I was choosing my colleges was I had a list of colleges in state, and then I had a list of colleges out of state. And this is a very privileged thing to say, and not many people have this option of even moving out of state, and I'm very humble and very thankful that I was able to go out of state for college and, you know, garner this new experience. But I wasn't very concerned with the location of my college when I was choosing colleges. I was just looking at colleges that were the right fit for me, and that I think that I would just flourish into like a different person and be a better person at this university or college. So when I was looking at the schools, I didn't really think about like, oh, this one's in like Hawaii, I want to go to Hawaii. No, I didn't really have a location in mind. I was just very lucky to fortunately stumble upon the college that I am now, which is in Minnesota, in the Twin Cities, which is not very different from New York City. So that in that way, I didn't really have much of a transition to make, and I was very lucky because of that. But yeah, so my parents were just very considerate of all the choices that I had, and they put their faith in me to choose a school that I would definitely be happy at, because in high school, this is a whole other story for another time, but in high school, I didn't really have a good experience in school, and I had the worst time ever, like the worst 4 years of my life. So, and I think them knowing that, they wanted me to have a better experience in college and to just get something out of college that I didn't get in high school. So there was really no convincing on my part. And then this leads into the next question, is how did you decide your college? So this is like a long story that I love to tell people, and it's such an amazing story because I really think that the people that you meet have such an impactful and important presence in your life. I was working at a lab, sorry, that's my heater. I was working at a lab for 3 years prior to choosing schools for 3 summers, and I met my lab partner, one of my lab partners. He went to the college that I am attending now, and I remember for that one summer, he would come in every day wearing his university t-shirt, like the biology program one, and he would wear it so proudly, and he would just flaunt it, and he would tell me all about his school, and we would talk a lot about universities, because I remember I was a sophomore, and it was still in the back of my mind. It wasn't like forefront of my mind and my thinking, but it was still in the back of my mind that someday I would have to choose colleges, and the realization hit me when I had to choose colleges, so I just asked him a lot of questions about his school, and I seem to have garnered all my knowledge about the school that I'm attending and that he was going to from him, so that's like where I got all my research from. But yeah, so when it came to actually choosing schools for junior year, and putting a list together, I remember that that school was at the top of my list because I just had heard so much about it. I had been influenced so much that I couldn't really say that it was like, I couldn't say that it wasn't a school for me because I had heard so much about it. It was at the forefront of my mind. So yeah, that's a story of how I found my college, and I was a very impulsive little high school senior, and I decided to apply for my college early decision. I'm not saying it was the wrong choice and that I regret it. By no means do I regret it, but I just was very impulsive because I didn't even visit my school. I didn't visit the school before I decided to ED. And I don't think you have to visit every school that you apply to. I think that's such a stigma that like if you didn't visit the school and you think it's your dream school, that it can't be your dream school. That's such a bad way to think of it because not a lot of people can even afford to fly to California to visit UCLA, or they can fly out of state to visit an out of state school. I just think that's total bullshit, and I got a lot of shit for not visiting my school and ED to it. I was like, I'm applying ED to my school, and people are like, did you visit? And I'm like, no. And I didn't see why that was a problem because I had done my research. I talked to current students there. I talked to faculty. I talked to teachers. I didn't think it was a problem for me not to visit. I think visiting just adds a very physical factor, like you get to see what the physical appearance of the school, and I think a lot of people base it on that. Like, to be honest, a lot of my friends were like, oh, this school has a really pretty campus, so I'm applying to it. And I think that also like hinders your college experience and your college decision making process, because you're very swayed over the physical appearance of the school. So I definitely thought that not visiting, well, basically I just couldn't afford it, so I was just like, I'm not gonna visit, but I'm EDing, which is, like I said, EDing is pretty impulsive, especially since I didn't know what I wanted to do. So yeah, don't be impulsive like me, be smart about your choices, do your research. But yeah, just the whole conversation into not having to visit, that's something that I want to talk about. The next category that we are jumping into is my dorm room. So someone asked, what is the theme of your dorm? I love this question because when I started designing for my dorm room, I feel like when all college students get into college, they're like, oh my god, I'm gonna like do a home makeover to my dorm. We're gonna do demolition. We're gonna knock down the walls, put like a freaking sushi bar. That is not the case. It's not realistic. You can't spend $5,000 on a dorm room makeover. I mean, some people can, but I couldn't. So I just went very simple. I just put a lot of posters up, put a lot of Polaroids, put some candy wrappers. I even kept zoo tickets and put them on the wall because they just remind me of the best times in my life. And I think that's just a really good way to decorate your dorm, is with memories and with photos. And I think that's such a simple way and an easy way to spruce up the dorm, add some color into it. Memories are always really interesting because I love when people come visit my dorm room. Like when my friends come over and they look at all the photos on my wall and they just take like 10 minutes to look at all the photos and ask me questions, I think it just makes me feel a lot less homesick. So definitely that's the theme of my dorm, it's memories. The second question is, can we see a photo of your dorm? Yes, I will insert a photo in front of my face right now as I'm speaking. Future me will edit it in. The next question that I want to touch upon is, what is it like sharing a room with a total stranger? So this, I remember when I was first showing you guys my roommate. I love my roommate, but for 18 years I have shared a room with my twin sister, and we are kind of like we are two different people. We may look the same, but we are actually so different. She is super messy, I'm a neat freak. So I think I was just up for anything. I was like, this person can't be as messy as my sister, or she can't be as different as my sister. And I definitely, a lot of people going to college, when they find out that they're getting a roommate, they obviously want to be so optimistic about it, and they want to say, yes, I want to be best friends with my roommate, and I want to be like a sister or a brother with my roommate. But that's not the reality. Some roommates just don't get along, or some roommates just don't become best friends, and that's totally fine. It's different for everyone. I'm happy to say that my roommate and I are best friends, but not everyone's experience is like that. And what was it like sharing my room with a total stranger? At first, it was a little bit weird, waking up in the morning and my sister wasn't in the bed next to me. It was this total stranger. But then I remembered, like, this person's not that different from my sister. It's just like living with someone who's very different from me, who shares different hobbies and likes differences. So it wasn't that hard, but I do understand how some people, if you might be single child, or if you've never lived with someone in the same room, how it might be a little bit weird and how it might be a little bit compromising, because you have to kind of, you know, think about what the other person is thinking, not just you. So that is a little different, but I have no tips for that because I've never experienced that. The last and final category we are going to is tips. So someone asked, what do you do to reduce stress when there is a lot of work during finals? So this is a perfect question because I just finished my finals period, and that's why I'm on winter break, and I've also been through my first college midterms. So college midterms and finals can be stressful. They can be so different from what you've experienced in high school finals and high school midterms. And I think the best way to find something to do to reduce stress is, this is gonna sound so cliche, guys, but just to find some time to relax. And let me tell you, I'll give you a tip to relax if you need one. So this year I discovered a major hobby of mine. I am by no means an artist or an artistic person. I am very bad. I'm very artistically challenged, but I found out that if you just take a paintbrush and paint on a canvas, or if you just take some pipe cleaners and make some slime and be artistically and be creative, it is very stress relieving. I find just taking a pen sometimes and drawing in my dorm room very stress relieving. I also find doing putting my energy into different outlets like booktube and Instagram and blogging and writing a blog post is very stress relieving. I think you just have to find your little outlet of creativity. I think creativity is definitely very energy consuming, so you have to take the energy that you were using for studying and put it into a different outlet so that you are equally being creative and being, you know, hardworking and studying so hard. But I think creativity is a great way to stress relieve, and it makes you also feel accomplished because then in the end you've created something and it's very you, and it's just awesome and it's an amazing feeling. And I definitely think being creative helps you relieve stress. So I would recommend being creative in some way. You don't have to be an artist. You can just take some pipe cleaners, make a braid, something fun, just something to use your hands, you know, like make some slime or whatever. The next question is, how do you balance your account with school? So this is a question I got a lot on my channel, or just some people DMing me sometimes. How do you balance Instagram or not booktube, because I don't count taking a 4-month hiatus as balancing my account. But for Bookstagram, I consistently posted throughout my first semester of college, and I just think that Instagram is such not an easy platform, but it's an easier platform to keep up, especially when you're in school, because we do something so unconsciously every day in our life, which is take pictures. Especially if like you're my age, you're a college student, you're always taking pictures for Snapchat about what you're eating, about what you're doing at the moment, just for like your friends. But if you can channel that same energy and put it into like your Bookstagram account and like show what you're currently reading, or even some people like to see what you're currently studying. So I think that's super interesting, and that's how I was able to keep up my Bookstagram throughout the year, because I was able to also employ the help of my fellow students and my roommate to help me take some cool Instagram pictures. And I also think that's a tip as well to balance your account. Get your friends involved, not your teachers, get your friends involved, get your roommates involved. Make it a fun activity so that you can also bond with people, but also keep up your Instagram and get some content together. The next question is, any recs for someone starting out in the fall out of state? So if you're going to be a little college freshie next fall and you're looking to go out of state for school, or even just far away from home, I definitely recommend researching that area for possible coffee places or like fun game areas, or just a mall or restaurants that you could probably check out. Because I think a huge thing is that when you're meeting new people, it's that you don't know where to meet them, or you want to like suggest these places. Like if you're meeting someone for the first time, you can say, hey, do you want to grab a cup of coffee with me at this coffee place? And I think it's a great way to meet people, but also experience a new place, because when you and that person are in a new place, it's also new to them. So it's just like a new experience for both of you, and then that way you can bond over that like new experience and how confused you guys are, and just talk about all your struggles being a college freshman. I remember in the few weeks of starting school, I would talk nonstop to like people who I didn't even know. Just, this is like the conversation starter. The conversation starter was always like, oh my god, like what clubs are you gonna join, or what classes are you taking? Every time I meet someone new, I was like, oh, what classes are you taking this semester? And it would just start up an entire conversation and lead into different routes of conversation that you never knew that this person was like interested in, and it's just gonna let you make a lot of new friends. But yeah, that is my tip. Definitely do some research on some places, but also just, you know, what is the question again? If you're starting out of state, just don't think that it's going to be an easy transition. If you go into it thinking that it's going to be a little difficult, you won't have such high expectations, and then when your expectations fail you, you won't be so disappointed. So definitely, I think, go in with some pretty low expectations, but still be excited about it, and just know that it's going to be a pretty hard transition. So the final question that I'm going to answer in this video, because this video is getting way too long, is how hard is it to make friends? And I will answer as honestly impossible. It was pretty hard for me, and this is a question that is going to differ when someone new answers it. I definitely don't think it's hard for everyone. I also don't think it's easy for everyone, and I think people are on either side of that spectrum. I think when people go into college, they're either like, oh my god, it's gonna be so much easier to make friends because I'm in this pool with so many more people, but I also think on the other side of that, it's going to be so much harder to make friends because there's just, you don't know what people are like. The people might be mean, people might be smarter than you, or whatever. You might be hard to talk to them. But I think definitely something that you have to do is you have to put yourself out there, and it's something that I never did in high school. I remember in the first week of college, I was just like waiting for people to come to me and introduce themselves. And that's totally wrong. I should have been the first one to put myself out there, because if you're waiting on the side and the other person that you want to meet is waiting on the side, then you're at a stalemate because you're both waiting on the side, waiting for someone to introduce themselves, and no one starts the conversation. So I definitely think put yourself out there as much as possible, even if that's saying, oh my god, like, I loved your shirt, and like, where'd you get it? And then you guys bond over like your favorite stores and whatever. Yeah, quirky things like that. Just small conversations lead into longer, long-lasting relationships and longer conversations and your similar interests and all that good stuff. So I definitely think putting yourself out there even a little bit, like getting that anxiety, conjuring up that confidence and spirit to go up to someone and shake their hand. Well, no one really shakes hands anymore, but you can say, hey, like, my name is blah blah blah, like, what dorm room do you live in, or what dorm hall do you live in, that kind of stuff, that kind of small conversation, college stuff. And honestly, in the first week of college, there's so much stuff to talk about with your fellow college freshies that it's so easy to start a conversation. And I definitely think that you'll always find someone who is very similar to you. There's just so many people in college that there's definitely one person on campus that like has to like Star Wars, or has to have anxiety, or someone who has a twin sister, like, you know what I mean? Like, someone on campus is going to have something similar to you, and that's just another thing to bond over. So definitely you have to find that person, and even if it means going through a lot of people. Okay guys, those were all of my Q&A questions and answers for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any more questions down below, just leave them down below in the comments. I will be happy to answer them on my own time, probably in another video, or maybe I'll just answer them in the comments. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I wish you all the luck in your college experiences, in your high school experiences. Applying to colleges is a tough thing to go through, but you are definitely amazing and you can do it. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching my video, and I'll see you on my next one. Bye!